Testing, testing. Let's see.
1, 2.
Yeah, 1, 2. A nice little 1, 2 right there. I feel like I can be pretty easily heard. Let me turn out the headphones a little bit. Ooh, it's kind of smooth. A little too smooth.
Can you hear me just fine?
Oh, I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
I'm not getting any.
You're not getting any of me?
No, I'm getting all you. I'm not getting any me.
Really?
What is yours?
Yeah. Oh, did you mess with that?
I did.
Little guy? Try to cycle through those a little bit. Well, howdy. This is Christian Blaney's Cockpit. This is a radio show, a talk radio show where I get to bring on whoever I want to, pretty much, and it's just a pretty sweet gig on there. So today I have my buddy Jake Smith on. Again, my name's Christian Blaney, and we're just going to talk about whatever we want. Jake, can you hear yourself yet?
No.
No, not at all.
But.
What about now?
Oh, yes.
There it is.
There we go.
There it is. All right. If you feel like you need to be louder, you can probably just crank that baby. And if that's not loud enough, just let me know and I'll twist the headphones.
I think it's working fine.
All right, we're set. Jake Smith, how are you?
I've been doing good.
Excellent.
Yeah, a lot of homework, a lot of schoolwork, a lot of focusing.
A lot of focusing. I feel that as well. Ton of focusing because since I'm not doing it in the athletic right now, I'm working out and stuff, but I'm doing esports, and that's just focusing all the time.
Yeah.
Focusing for like long amounts of time. So I'm feeling it in this, like I'm feeling that soreness almost in the same way that I'm feeling the muscle soreness that I would normally get from like doing rugby or doing jiu-jitsu like I've done over the break or anything along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, it wears on you.
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
Yeah. People don't ever really talk about like the mental kind of wear that, whether it's esports or whether it's normal sports.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like chess players, like I think I might have brought this up in a previous episode.
So many calories.
Yeah, they burn about twice the amount of calories as like a high functioning human.
Jeez.
Normally would. Like the normal person. I mean, normal is obviously a subjective term, but if you're like around the average for, let's say, an adult male, you're probably burning around 3,000 calories a day. And they burn about 6,000 in a tournament day.
Jeez.
And yeah, it's too much. It's really too much. And so I don't think I'm burning quite that much. My Fitbit says I'm burning around like 3,300, something like that, which is still over average. But yeah, it's a lot. But then again, it can't really track how many calories I'm burning with my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, because like oxygen or the way your body responds to thinking hard is not the same way your body responds to working out hard, because you know your muscles take oxygen, then your heart needs to pump faster because it needs to recycle that oxygen. This doesn't really need to work the same way when it comes to working your brain hard.
Yeah, it doesn't really translate. Huh.
No. Let me turn this down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's good. Excellent. Yeah. Well, cool.
Been playing a lot of Melee too.
Yeah, Smash Melee. So
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know, Jake Smith is one of my friends that plays a game that I grew up with called Super Smash Bros. Or it's a series of games, and he's really familiar with maybe one of the two games in the series that I am not as familiar with, but I want to get more familiar with. It's a fighting game. Actually, Jake, how about you explain it? You've been playing it more than me recently.
Okay. It's a fighting game. A party game, so it was designed like just to hang out with your friends. It's the second one in the series, and it came out in around 2001. And I think everyone, or a lot of people, have played Smash Bros. It's a very like fun game to play with your friends. You can turn items on, and you can kind of play around with all these video game all-stars.
Yeah, you can have like a good time playing with either
like Mario,
I don't know, like a 7-year-old or like a 21-year-old. Like it's probably the biggest, maybe like age inclusive range for any party game.
Yeah.
Or competitive game even, because there's also a competitive community that Nintendo doesn't really care about as much.
No, they're one of the few. Smash Bros is one of the few grassroots competitive scenes, which is one of the things that I really like about it.
What do you mean, like it wasn't meant to be a competitive game, but it just sprung up?
Yeah, grassroots in the sense that like it's very community backed. And so a lot of the problems that the scene runs into is partially because there's no overarching system of support. And from a political science perspective, it's interesting, but it's also interesting just from like a gaming perspective.
Well, yeah, there's some like let me know if I pronounce this name right or wrong, but like hegemonic. There's like a hegemonic situation there. I'm just thinking mostly because of was it Big House?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. Hegemonic. I don't know if I would use that term, but
Okay.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So there's a tournament called the Big House. They've had, I think 9 now. Maybe this was the 9th.
Did it happen?
No.
Okay.
So the last 8 ran smoothly, and then the 9th, they were going to do it online, and
Because of COVID.
Yes.
Like that, you kind of have to. It would be irresponsible to do it in any other way.
Exactly. And they're using this technology, which is coded by community members, and it allows for very smooth online play. And it's an incredible piece of technology. It's entirely free. It's community backed.
And this is Slippy, right?
It's called
Slippy.
It's called Slippy.
That's what Jake's going to teach me this game on. So is it legal? Like, what's the issue? What's the issues with, or what's the issue that Nintendo has with Slippy?
So the only real legal issue is that if you play a game like Smash Melee online, you have to legally own a copy.
Okay.
Which is like...
So even if you're not using that copy, you just have to show proof that you own it?
It's an
or
odd...
What's the situation?
That's exactly like the question. It's not super clear in the law.
Because it's not an open source game, is it?
So...
But it's using an open source software to play the game?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems a
But
little...
you're supposed to own a copy of the game when you play it. It's almost impossible to find copies of Melee.
Yeah, they're really expensive.
They're
Because
very
it's a really popular game that came out
20 years
so
ago.
long. Yeah, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? 2001.
2001.
It was released.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, so what do they expect you to do? Like, what was Nintendo's statement on that?
So Nintendo Nintendo expects you to not play the game.
Really?
Yeah, they
They expect you to not play their game that everyone loves?
Yeah,
There's a huge community around.
in the most convenient way that there is possible to play it. They expect you not to play it like that.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it's partially because of Japanese copyright law. It's partially because Nintendo is notorious for protecting, in a similar way to Disney, their original properties aggressively and unabashedly. And it's partially, I think, just due to conflict between Nintendo and the Smash Bros. Competitive community in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird. Now, I guess what would that past conflict be? Because this is the first conflict that I've really heard of between the competitive community and Nintendo.
There's been history. I guess the history of competitive Smash Bros. Is the history of I don't know. There's no great way to describe what goes on because it's a Japanese company and an American community, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets lost in
Is there not as much of
translation.
a competitive Japanese community?
There is. It's just not as influential to the kind of culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2013, Super Smash Bros. Melee was going to be played at EVO, which is the biggest premier fighting game tournament.
Sorry, what year was this again?
2013, I think.
2013, okay.
Maybe 2015. But it was the biggest tournament, fighting games for the year, and it was going to be streamed on Twitch, which is a live streaming service for video games. And Nintendo said, you can't do that. They said, we don't want our game streamed.
But they can't, it's not like they're going to profit off of it, like, otherwise, right? Like, they don't have their own streaming service.
Nope. It was just, we don't want our game to be streamed.
And is this due to Japanese copyright law or all copyright laws?
There's never been a reason given for that.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not like...
That frustrates me so much when a large, like, either an administration or just a powerhouse of some kind of organization, like, doesn't want you to do something because, like, oh, you'll make money off of it or something. It's like, okay, well, you're not making money off of it right now. You know what I mean? Like there's something rich, like there's a culture happening right now, and if you're just getting rid of it, then no one's benefiting. Then what good is that doing the world?
The way that we set up corporations and copyright laws makes it more beneficial for them to shut people using it down, even if they're not causing harm to the original creator. It's more beneficial for them because eventually, if people continue using that piece of like intellectual property or that copyrighted game, it can theoretically you could claim, oh, it's now been in the public domain X number of years. You have to treat this code, but that
isn't that like
hasn't happened.
like a really long time?
It might be
like for example, I don't know. In some year, Disney stuff is going to be out of copyright law.
Yeah, I think it's 75 years after.
That's so
and then,
long.
I know. And
when was that law made?
I'm not sure, and I
but
think
I know
Disney's
it was
gotten
made before Moore's Law. I brought up Moore's Law literally every podcast. Bear with me. For those of you that don't know what Moore's Law is, it's the theory that I don't know what's a law. I feel like it's more of a theory, but because a bunch of stuff can get in the way of it. But it's that technology doubles, or really computing power doubles roughly every decade. That's it. It just doubles every decade.
Okay.
Or exponentially, or just like it increases exponentially
Mm-hmm.
every decade. Might not be doubled, but
I think it is doubled. Yeah,
but to say that just 75 years, and then the way our laws are made, at least in the U.S., I know, is that once a law is passed, it's pretty hard to get it unpassed or reviewed because there's so many more things popping up.
Yeah, especially at when it gets passed by a higher court, whether it's you start at like the local federal courts, and then you go to the appellate courts, and then you go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And generally, once stuff reaches the state appellate level, if it gets resolved there and then it gets appealed to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court denies it, or if it doesn't get appealed to the Supreme Court, that generally, once you get to or past the appellate level, you can almost bet on things kind of being locked in unless you get high-powered lawyers, big money, or have an incredibly strong case in a different instance.
Man.
Yeah. Our legal system is set up to help those who are already winning. Our entire economy.
I think a lot of
set
people
up.
already know that.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. What's the solution to that in your mind? Do you know? Especially when it comes to these copyright laws, because if we go to like every example, that's a tough one. We might not have the expertise, but at least when it comes to Super Smash Bros, how do we fix this copyright law so that the community that is like a super deep and supportive, from my perspective, community will be able to continue?
So in my opinion, when you're distributing a product or a video game, like a digital, it's a physical disc, but it's a digital, it's code that you're basically distributing.
Yeah.
When it comes to something like that, I personally think that after you publish it, there should be a set amount of time where you can continue to sell it. And if you continue to sell at a roughly similar production or a percentage of the production that you initially sell at, so that there's a continued supply of the software, then you're allowed to continue to charge and you're allowed to continue to keep your copyright. But I think after a certain point, every single piece of code that isn't being actively sold at a similar production capacity to its original, output, should at some point become public domain.
Yeah. Well, there's that solution, and I actually like that idea. I never thought of it like that. Yeah, if it's continuously being sold, because I wouldn't have any problem buying a copy of the disc of Super Smash Bros. Melee. That's no problem, dude.
Or even if they sold like the digital copy.
That's totally fine by me. I mean, like, we have all the capacity to do that. Nintendo has all the capacity to do that. Yes. They have an e-store. Yep. Like, they have an online shop. But I just can't. I can't do it. So I have to play with Slippy.
Yeah.
And secret, I don't actually have that game.
Okay.
Don't
You're
tell Nintendo.
Going to jail?
I know. I have a buddy that has the game. I'll just if they ask me, I'll
they come knocking.
Yeah. I'll grab that.
But
that's not a bad way of thinking about things. Are you into open source at all?
I'm a supporter of open source code, open source software, just in general.
Yeah.
I think OBS, for example.
Yeah, I actually have. Oh no, I have that computer closed. I was about to if I could have found the other webcam for this,
Mm.
I was going to use OBS to switch between webcams,
Okay.
but maybe next time.
OBS is amazing.
Yeah, what does OBS stand for?
Open
Broadcasting
Broadcast
Software.
Software.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, the esports team, we use it for
Mhm.
our games. Like if our coach needs to review like some things, or like, okay, Christian, like this
Mhm.
was a good play, but if you see like this guy walked over here, so you really should have shifted your body to, it's
Yeah.
like you can explain really complex things
Mhm.
for free.
Well, it's also
Yeah.
such a versatile tool because you
Yeah.
can use it for, recording your VODs when you're playing a video game.
Yeah.
But you can also use it for streaming. You can use it for just recording your screen for anything.
Yeah.
And then you can download extra plugins because it's open source. It makes it really easy to modify the original code.
Yeah, and it's by far the most used broadcasting.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would argue with it. Joe Rogan, probably one of the richest, or largest fan base person, like in, I guess, what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
He uses OBS,
Yeah.
totally free software,
Yeah.
but it's the best thing out there
But-
because anyone can
Mhm.
can deal with it.
You have to wonder where this kind of industry genre, like radio shows or even broadcasting in general, would be without open source
Yeah.
broadcasting services.
Yeah, the lower or the higher the entry level is, the more gatekeepers can come in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know the issues that happen with big recording companies when they have all the all the plugins, all the
Yeah.
software to make whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously people that are making these software, they need to make money, but there's going to be something else out there that's just as good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the proof is that once something comes out, even if there's a patent for it, 14 days after it's released, someone makes a copy of it.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Yep.
And so you might as well make it open source too,
Mm-hmm.
make it better to the people that are working on it. Meaning they get the credit for, like, for example, a G's mod or Gary's mod.
Yeah.
That's the foundation source of, for example, Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Mm-hmm.
One of the largest.
It's called the source engine.
The source
Yeah.
engine, exactly. And I'm pretty sure that's open source. That's how we were able to make something that great. Like, I'm finding ways, because I'm learning about open source right now in my 3D printing class.
Okay.
I'm just seeing all over the place some of the best things I use in my day-to-day life are open source.
Mm.
And this doesn't mean people aren't making money off of it. There's tons of ways you can find to make money off open source, but you have to think unconventionally.
Mm. What I would love to
yeah.
see is open source, either a web browser or a search engine. A completely open source web browser or a completely open source and convenient search engine.
Isn't Mozilla Firefox?
I'm not sure.
Is that open source?
I know Linux is an open source operating
Yes,
system.
yeah.
Firefox might be an open source browser.
Yeah, I can actually get back to you on that. There's this list that my teacher pulled up, or my professor pulled up
Okay.
in class of like open source for everything. Like, for example, like, oh, go to social media. These are the non-open sources. These are the open sources.
Mm.
And I was actually happy to see that one messaging service that I actually like a lot. It's called Signal. That's
I've heard
open
of that.
source.
I've heard of that.
Signal's fantastic, dude. It looks just like iMessage, pretty much. No green text.
Mm.
You can talk to your Android friends without like thinking they're weird. But seriously, it's great. I think it's high resolution pictures.
Okay.
Because when someone sent a picture to me through Signal, I don't think like, wow, that is really grainy, because it's not coming through like SMS.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
Signal.
Signal.
Okay.
It's like the icon is just like a white chat bubble with a blue surrounding
Okay.
text. I think everyone should download it because, especially if you have Android friends, it looks a lot better. And it's
Mm.
better for both you and them. And it's completely encrypted, completely secure.
Okay.
No one's going to sell your data because they don't have access to it. Yeah,
Interesting.
really interesting.
I'll check it out for sure.
For sure. Let's see. What I wanted to get into with you some political stuff, because you are a poli-sci major.
Mm-hmm.
And my next guest, as far as I am concerned, is going to be the head of the Turning Point USA club on campus. I think that's what they'd call it, the club, right?
It's a chapter.
Yeah, the chapter of Turning Point USA that is at Principia. And so I thought I'd warm myself up and get talking political because I'll be doing it again this week.
Okay. Hit me with whatever you got.
Yeah, so we were talking the other day and you brought it. Well, first you brought it up and I just didn't ask details. But then I asked again, and this is about Trump's like economic policies when it comes to trade, especially with China. But I feel like it would include also other foreign policies because a lot of people will say that I didn't like Trump's the way he talks about women, or I didn't like the way he doesn't speak like a statesman. He doesn't feel like a good representative, whatever. But his economic policies are great, and you can see like the proof is in the pudding. The GDP is going up before COVID, stuff like that. And you actually had like a counterpoint to that I hadn't heard before, and I feel like it makes sense for people to listen to, even if you don't agree. It makes sense to understand, I guess, all perspectives, because you're not going to really understand who's in your country, like what it means to be an American without knowing what other Americans are thinking. So go ahead, man.
Okay, I'll raise 2 points. The first is domestic economic policy, and then the second I'll talk about foreign economic policy.
Sure.
So, in terms of domestic economic policy, Trump kind of came on to the scene in 2015, 2016, and claimed he was going to drain the swamp. There's rampant corruption in Washington, and he was going to benefit the people, which are nice things to claim, nice things to hear. When Trump got into office, a lot of the domestic economic changes that he made, especially to taxes, were largely beneficial to the upper class.
And what are some examples of this really quick?
So he gave massive tax breaks to, I can't tell you exactly what it was. It wasn't federal income tax. It wasn't state income tax, but he gave tax breaks to upper class. Sounds a little odd. More things could be written off as tax deductible. Okay. And that was a fairly recent change. But early on, most of the economic changes he made benefited small businesses too. Okay. I'm sure that's why I feel like a lot of people that are in big support of small businesses are big fans of Trump. Yes. Like that's something that's definitely a trend that I've seen. Well, my dad, small business owner, runs a restaurant. He was obviously opposed to a lot of things that Trump said. Sure. On women.
Where are you from again?
I grew up in California.
Okay, is that where his business is located? Okay, yeah. California.
But
you liberal.
He benefited immensely from the small business breaks. Sure. But at the same time, he was not benefiting nearly as much as large kind of corporate people. Okay.
Is it bad in general, in your opinion, for them to benefit?
I think. Well, let me get to the next point.
Okay, yeah, sure. We'll flesh it all out.
One of I couldn't tell you if this was the same bill or if this was the same tax plan. But there was also a plan passed that increased taxes on people making $75,000 or less.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
That only starts in 2021, and it phases in every 2 years. Yeah. So starting in 2021, after he's out of office, your taxes are going to go up. Not yours, sure, but probably both
Dude,
of
I'm
ours.
Not paying any taxes anyway. I'm like 20 years old.
Yeah. But the point is, the taxes are going up, and it's a much bigger deal to Americans who aren't making like absurd amounts of money. Yeah. Who are making pretty normal like salaries. Sure. And
so is it up by like a percentage per like tax bracket, or? And did you say 75?
I think it's 75,000 or less.
75,000 or less.
I would encourage.
Will go up again. Oh yeah. By the way, this should not be your only like source
I should never be your only
Yeah,
source.
yeah. Jake Smith should never be. No, I'm just kidding. Jake Smith's a smart guy. I like talking to him.
Thank you.
But anyone that I have on, if they're saying something, look it up yourself, man. I know I'm going to look up a lot of this because I listen back to all my podcasts after I do it. I'll see what he's talking about. And that's why I always leave it open to my guests to come back on another time, because then we can cover these things that we didn't have all the information for before.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, how effective conversation can work, yeah.
If I was a listener, I would Google any search engine that you trust, Trump 2021 $75,000.
Sure.
And then tax or tax plan.
Sure.
And get your own information on this, because I'm certainly not an expert,
Yeah.
especially on economics.
Yeah, but you're an American, and you have some beef with Trump, and feels like we should figure out where that's coming from, because there's a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I've got the other main point still,
Okay.
which is foreign economic policy.
Mm-hmm.
And so foreign economic policy is complicated. It is less economics a lot of the time and more foreign policy and international relations, but to not call it economics would be incredibly ignorant. Like, it is still heavily economically focused. And the importance of recognizing it as economics is that this isn't kind of who has the bigger stick, who can swing harder. This is like who is the more crafty, who's the more shrewd, who is managing their economy better, who is kind of networking better and spreading their corporations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I feel like, isn't that how it normally is with capitalism, though?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
But
same. It's the same game.
I'm not, yes. I'm
Yeah.
saying, though, that's the economic part. That's
Okay.
important. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, that is capitalism.
Sure.
Especially global capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Trump did not play the game right, and Trump lost. And
Okay.
that is what's very, odd. Because Trump is a guy who normally wins. I don't think he wins in honest ways a lot of the time, and I think a lot of the time he wins through, in my opinion, questionable means.
Okay.
At least morally.
Do you have any examples of that really quick?
Yeah, I think Trump using his kind of incredible position of wealth and power to give his kids money by contracting them, or saying, "Oh, you're going to be my advisor. I'm going to give you."
We're seeing that on both sides of the political spectrum.
We are.
Yes.
Yes.
What are the chances that Hunter Biden's really qualify for that position? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Mhm.
It's wrong on both sides.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, just so everyone understands my personal political leanings, I'm in the middle. I don't really like any big party. I voted Libertarian. So, yeah, that's the basis of where I am. I just want to talk to people, see what they're up to. And if you don't criticize me for not pushing back super hard, I'm just asking questions right now. This is why free speech is a good thing to have around.
So let's think about Trump pre-presidential campaign.
Sure.
Very pop culture kind of guy.
I know who he was, yeah.
Apprentice, all that.
Mm-hmm.
He was also notorious for being ruthless, a ruthless businessman. Targeting low-income communities, exploiting low-income communities.
Did people have beef with him about this before he came into the spotlight?
People had beef, but there's also so little you can do when you are one person and they are a billionaire.
Gotcha.
And I mean, you've seen how hard it is to organize a movement. It's also pre-cancel culture.
That's true.
So Trump existed totally fine pre-cancel culture. He was more of a pop culture celebrity. But he also represented the voice for a lot of people who kind of felt like this idea of an American, like Donald Trump, was a good and valid way to kind of aspire to.
Yeah.
And so when
he doesn't take any flack from anybody, yeah. I mean, I actually think that can be for sure a good quality for a lot of people.
It can be.
But it also makes you not very likable. So
yes.
We kind of saw this coming, right?
Well, yeah. For me, the moment where he has the McDonald's in the White House is a great
He has a McDonald's in the White House?
Yeah, he served a McDonald's dinner for I think a sports team.
That's okay.
No,
that's not bad.
It's not. Well, that's the moment where for me it became evident that this is, for Donald Trump, it's more about imaging, and it's more about branding.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to imaging and branding, that's something America is normally really good at. And it's something that Trump's been really good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that when you get into political, or you get into economic and geopolitical economics, it matters less. And so when Trump was trying to play his game with China, where he put tariffs on Chinese products, I think Chinese steel, a lot of that is still branding. A lot of that is Trump saying, this is what America is. America is not going to take it from China. America is going to show China what's up.
But that doesn't matter. Who does that like not matter to a certain party as much?
It's more about it just doesn't matter to the rest of the world so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This goes beyond America at this point.
So your critique is that he's focused on what he knows America's values are, and maybe his little short-sighted to world economic policies. Is that your critique on that?
Well, yes, but I don't want to totally discredit the idea of appealing to American values, because American values are appreciated still
for sure,
to this day around the world.
I love America. Born and raised, baby.
Not as much as they used to be. And so actions like that trade tariff, which really was inconsequential, or mostly inconsequential, those, in my opinion, served much less of a purpose as they seem to be intended to. And you can see that because China, their primary economic, Their primary economic program right now is this Belt and Road Initiative, which is this idea that the Silk Road, which kind of connected Asia to the Middle East and by extension to Europe and to India, that a new type of Silk Road can be built with China as kind of the
source?
Yeah, like the main trader, or the one benefiting the most from it.
Oh, okay. So with the Silk Road, so China was originally the one benefiting from it the most, or
no? But the idea is, well, I'm not sure. But the idea is that it's a new Silk Road. That's branding.
Sure.
But it's also branding that affects so many more countries than just China. It connects to India. It connects to parts of Africa, I believe.
Yeah. Because America's not the only one buying a lot of Chinese products, right?
No.
Or companies, right?
And America does buy a lot from China, but China does export a lot to other countries.
Sure.
And imports a lot from other countries. And so the Belt and Road Initiative connects kind of that entire region of the world. And then, secondly, there's this transnational corporations, which are corporations and companies that exist across country borders.
Yeah.
And so countries such as Great Britain, members of the EU, they need corporations in their country. They just do. And if you don't have British investors, where are your investors going to be from?
Oh, China.
Yes, or the United States. But since the United States, instead of maybe if an economic policy was taken that encouraged American investments in transnational corporations, that could be incredibly beneficial for American investors. But instead, China has been basically... they're private Chinese citizens, but when you have an authoritarian state such as China, your privacy is very differently defined than the United States.
That's something that my dad has a lot of beef with when it comes to Chinese things. He stresses to me, and I mean it is true. Like from what I've seen, also if you're having to do with China, if you're either a Chinese citizen or if it's a business, the state has a big influence on what's going on.
I visited China for 2 weeks.
Sure.
A couple of years, or maybe 5 years ago.
How was it?
It's rigid. Like you walk down the street and it feels. It's a very beautiful country.
Yeah.
The people there are incredibly diverse, but it's still very. We visited Tiananmen Square. I believe it was. I don't want to say that because I'm not sure that's where we visited, but we visited this area, very famous.
Looked like Tiananmen Square.
I don't remember what it was. We visited.
I'm messing around, dude.
There were cameras. There was a pole with about 1 million cameras on it.
Ooh,
and there were.
That's creepy.
There were several of them kind of just set up in this public space.
Yeah.
And then there were patrols just going by, black cars, black uniforms. And that's just in a public area, which it was a famous public area. There was like cultural significance.
Yeah.
But it was very, very clear what you couldn't do.
Gotcha.
It was very, very clear that kind of if you weren't walking with everyone else, if you weren't like if you were looking at the wrong things for too long.
So like a sidewalk felt more like a highway. Does that make sense?
Not.
Was it like that kind of feeling, or?
It was more like
Because it seems to me that something to you felt off about it, and I'm just trying to figure out what that might have been.
I'm trying to phrase it the right way.
Yeah. Don't worry, no Chinese people are listening to this right now.
That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about conveying something wrong.
Sure, I understand. That's a fair thing to be worried about.
It was like you had a not only were people it was like you weren't only being patrolled by sight, you were also being patrolled by touch.
What do you mean by that?
Like
by touch?
Your own body wouldn't let you do things because you knew if you did them, you could be punished in a horrible way. It was almost the paranoia that was created by the state that in turn makes you want to follow the state's rules.
Gotcha.
Like just the sheer massive display of authority and security that was in that place made you want to respect it.
Yeah. Because
you feared what could happen if you didn't.
Yeah, so like resistance wasn't an option.
Yeah, I mean it could have been.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like I could have probably done something.
Walk the other direction on the sidewalk.
Yeah, but I might have gotten hit by a car. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was like all your nerves are firing, especially as an American there.
Yeah.
And it's just
gotta be really careful.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of Americans there?
No. I don't think most Chinese citizens had. We had a girl with red hair in our group, the travel group that I went with, and people would like come up to her and like touch her hair.
That's so creepy.
If we went to school, and that's the only place people touched their hair.
Okay.
Because we were like.
Was it like young kids?
No, they were our age, and they were like, "Oh, like can we?" They asked.
Oh, they asked. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
but
fine.
when we were in public,
Context, I guess.
When we were in public, people would come up to us and just like a couple feet away stare at her, because they had never seen somebody with red hair before.
Sure.
Yeah, and they would just like, unabashedly, no shame, just like, kind of follow us for a bit.
Yeah.
And it was very, very. It wasn't super uncomfortable because we got used to it, but it was incredibly foreign. Yeah.
Well, like, that's something that probably comes with like a large city environment, right? Like an extra sense of anonymity.
Yeah. You can just kind of also the ethnically China's fairly homogenous, or at least like when it comes to phenotypes, when it comes to like skin and physical characteristics, they're fairly more like homogenous than say the United States.
Oh, for sure. That's like undoubted, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't pull up some statistics to prove it, but I think making that assumption is fairly accurate.
Yeah.
So you also get a sense of anonymity in that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's like, are their cameras are for face recognition or for what?
That's a whole.
That's a whole thing.
Do we want to open that can of worms?
Open every can, dude. It's what do we got? We got another 20 minutes left.
Yeah. So, facial recognition technology, deep learning algorithms. That is more and more. See, the great and the horrible thing about that is that it's not based on the camera. Any camera can pick up an image. It's computers that do the facial recognition.
Yeah.
And you can have as big of a computer as you want if you find the big enough space for it.
Yeah.
So with Moore's law too, you're probably only going to see like facial recognition software getting more and more important, getting more and more powerful. And that combined with China's social credit score.
Could you explain that to me? I'm not aware.
Of course.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
So, but combining that with China's social credit score is very, very bad in my opinion. And the social credit score is this idea that have you ever seen Black Mirror?
I have. I've seen a lot of Black Mirror, at least.
The episode is Nosedive.
Okay.
where people have a star rating similar to Uber, and whenever you interact with somebody, you give them out of 5 stars the
Okay.
rating.
Sure. I haven't seen that one, but I understand the concept.
Mhm.
Yeah. Black
Yeah.
Mirror, by the way, for people that don't know, it's a show. It's on Netflix. It might be on other places, but I think it's just on Netflix. And it's like a different scenario every time, and every story has to do with how technology might affect us in the future based off of the way it's evolving.
And often in negative ways.
Often in negative ways, sometimes in positive ways. I like those episodes, or like funny ways, but yeah.
Yeah, so the social credit score is basically like, I don't think it's determined by other individuals. I think it's determined, I think it might still be in progress, but the idea is basically you are not in control of it, and your actions directly influence it, and then your social credit score determines, to some extent, your place in Chinese society. You won't be able to, like similar to American credit score, where you can't like buy a car. You
That's
can't
just
get a
the
loan.
financial one, though.
It's just financial
Yeah.
in America. In China, it would
So
be
they want to
social.
incorporate everything.
Yeah, and to some extent, well, like to some extent, economics are intimately tied to society and social interactions.
Yeah.
But in another sense, directly tying them, and then also incorporating facial recognition software. You know, all the jokes, oh, we're going to 1984. We're already in 1984.
I think 1984 has been brought up in the past decade way more than it has been in every decade before that since it came out.
Yeah, but certain things from 1984, like the TVs that watch you, that would be directly, like, you would almost see carbon copies of that in, like, Chinese cell phones, where it would be the facial recognition software would be able to tell basically the Chinese government almost whatever they wanted. And, you know, not every single citizen, 1.3 billion or however many, are going to be monitored by computers and cameras.
Yeah. Here, get the top one.
Okay.
Get the top one on the left and just yank it back. That's what tightens it.
Okay.
And because your headphones, you know, hold it in pretty well. That's been my. I'm just giving him tips on how to wear the mask during this thing because it's really annoying.
Yeah. Making do.
Yeah.
But that's just one example of how facial recognition software could.
Now, are they doing something like that in New York right now? Because I know there used to be, or maybe there are still, a lot of cameras around, and maybe it's less facial recognition. Maybe it's just like, to some people's opinion, over surveillance.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the masks on right now, it's bringing up a lot of questions. Like, for example, in a lot of states, maybe not a lot, at least in some states, you can't, even if you have like a concealed carry permit, for example, you aren't allowed to wear your mask and still have a gun on you.
Really?
Yeah, because there's no like real way of telling that person is that person very easily.
Yeah.
So.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's a big issue for a lot of people who are deeply into that world. Like, just so people know, my stance is that I'm very pro Second Amendment. I have no issue with concealed carry, in my opinion, just from a logical standpoint. I think it would make things safer if people would have that more frequently. But I totally understand if you wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want someone that isn't comfortable having concealed carry having that and things along those lines. Just so you know where I stand on that. But yeah, there's a ton of people that I've seen that have big issues with. Oh, wait, but I have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
So to those people that feel like their community's only safe if they're patrolling it because, like, maybe it's really big and cops are overworked and they're not going to respond immediately to something like that. So their own safety is in their opinion at jeopardy.
See, my opinion on guns is that honestly, I don't think guns should be restricted nearly as much as they are.
Woo.
But I
Let's
also, I think we have.
You got to back up a little bit for the people.
I'm not backing up. I'm going right ahead, but I'm clarifying.
Sure, that's important.
Our problems with guns don't come from guns.
Yes, I agree.
Our problems with guns come from lack of mental health awareness.
Which Boone and I talked about.
Militarized police force. And a separation between what the government wants and what the people wants.
Wow, those are some good points right there.
Those are, every single one of those things Columbine, mostly, in my opinion, was mostly mental health. Sandy Hook.
I think most people's opinion was mostly mental health. Yeah.
But I think Columbine, they were making weapons. Columbine as a city or as a town, the main job there was making weapons for I don't remember what company it was, a big arms manufacturer.
Oh, really?
And that can't be
I didn't know that part. That's got to be a factor.
That's got to be a factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not like...
But Columbine isn't the only one that happened.
Obviously.
So, yeah. So, obviously, mental health is a huge issue.
Yeah.
When Boone and I were talking about that, we were talking about destigmatizing mental health issues, especially to kids, because when kids are raised with something, they're more comfortable with it once they grow up.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, like, well, we should, instead of calling something anxiety, which has like a like, there's no way of getting away from that stigma, or
Is there?
Oh, maybe, but a way to make it easier to get away from that stigma is to call it like goopy goblin brain. Like, for example, this is Boone Steele we're talking about, so don't expect
you
to
made
be
it clear real fast.
a deeply political, but his idea actually kind of stands. Yeah, it's way easier to tell a kid, like, yeah, I got this goblin in my head. It's really annoying, but yeah, I'm just kind of working with it. And he's like, oh yeah, for sure, man. Dude, I got a goblin too. It's all right.
I can see how your guys' conversation eventually went to folklore.
Yep,
Because
exactly.
That's kind of the same like idea. Is you come up with fantastical things to explain phenomena that you're really familiar with, but you can't put a name to.
Yeah, sure.
Or the name that you put to them doesn't help in really understanding them.
Yeah.
Like
folklore things are very well named. Like the Mothman. That's a Mothman. It's not like the Zoobity Gobbity Doo.
Yeah, you don't have some weird name for it that makes you say, well, is that the Mothman?
Well, you want people to remember it.
Do I have the Mothman?
Do I have the Mothman?
If I call myself the Mothman, am I using the label correctly? Well, unless I look like a fucking moth, I'm not the Mothman.
Sorry for the language, everyone.
Oh, my bad.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
The point stands. It's very easy to tell what a Mothman is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Mental health is very, very volatile as a subject. And for some people, as mental health.
Yeah.
It is kind of literally the brain trying to understand itself, which in a sense feels like a paradox. Because if you can comprehend everything that's going on in your brain, what's going on in your brain? Is it just self-comprehension?
Yeah, we're at a weird place in our evolution, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, we're halfway in between, like, Ooga Booga, Knuckle Dragon monkeys to, like, space chimps. You know what I mean? We're right in between that little section, so we're just trying to understand what the heck is going on so we can make it to the next.
Are monkeys and chimpanzees different animals? They are, right?
No, they're the same. I mean, monkey, I'd consider, like, primates monkeys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like, there's obviously a ton of kinds of monkeys. Like, for example, there's, like, the long-tailed tiny ones, and there's the gorillas who are completely vegetarian but can smash you in one punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's huge disparity between what monkeys are. But
I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
We're halfway between something that we know and a future that we don't.
Yeah, we're in between something, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
We always are.
Yeah, we always are. Yeah, you're right. I bet, like,
But
monkeys... I bet humans, like, 1 million years ago were saying probably the same thing.
I don't think they were talking.
They were talking, bro. Come on.
I don't know.
I think there's evidence of... I don't think there's evidence of civilization, but there's definitely evidence of advanced, I guess... what's the word? Maybe not communication, but for example, people could make, like, woven pants.
A million years
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah,
feel
dude.
That sounds so...
You want me to look it up?
Yeah, let's get a date.
All right.
Because I have taken ancient world history classes, and I have read...
I swear
about
it was
human history.
super old.
I feel like Googling woolen pants probably isn't the best call. Maybe, like, Googling...
Okay, maybe it wasn't.
timeline.
Never mind. It was, like, 3,300 years ago.
Yeah.
There's got to be something else, though. I swear I read... no, maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Okay.
I think a couple 100,000 years.
We gotta have been wearing clothes, dude. We gotta have been wearing clothes. Maybe it was just all biodegradable. Maybe they knew what they were doing.
Well, yeah, of course. They didn't have anything that wasn't.
Yeah.
No plastics, no glass.
Yeah.
I think around like 300 to 500,000 years ago is generally where a lot of like histories start, where it kind
Yeah.
of transitions from nomadic into something more like recognizable as civilization.
You know who Graham Hancock is?
I don't.
He's a pretty, what's the word? Not everyone agrees with him.
Okay.
But he has a lot of compelling evidence and theories in his book called Fingerprints of the Gods that point to almost too much evidence to look away from that there was an advanced civilization more than 10,000 years ago.
Oh, that's interesting.
Whether it be humans or something else, but for example, there's a lot of things that just don't really make sense, like the Olmec heads.
I'm not familiar.
They're Negroid heads in South America. For, like, I think Bolivia is where they were found, but they're in multiple places.
Wait, what is that? What does Negroid mean?
Like African, like descent looking
Like
people.
descended from an African genealogy, or like what's the? I'm not sure what you're saying.
Like they have the characteristics of a black person.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
And they are dated like pretty long, like pretty far back.
pre or post, like expansion off of the African continent.
Pre. Yeah, that's
Okay,
why it
so-
doesn't make
so
sense
just
because
ancient human heads.
ancient human heads, but the only people that they and the people that we know were there were called the Olmecs.
Okay.
And this is, I think, just a word we came up with. It's not really. It's not like a.
Well, how many did they find?
Oh, quite a few. No, they're like, they're very real.
That's not. What
Okay.
Yeah, but like,
How many Olmec heads? Let me hit it up. And there's also, let me see, 1 second.
the thing is, you get 30 people on a boat who die in the right conditions, and their bones are preserved. You just.
Oh no, they're made of stone.
Oh.
They resemble, like, they're big stone heads, just the heads, that resemble Negroid features. And not features that might be represented in, like, the Aztec societies back then. It doesn't look the same.
Okay, I'm seeing it.
You know what I mean?
Huh.
Yeah. I'm showing Jake Smith a picture. Look up Olmec heads. Olmec. Anyway, so that's one of the examples. There's also a map of, like, almost perfectly, like, showing what Antarctica looks like under all of its ice. And the last time that happened was like 15,000 years ago.
That's interesting.
And it was copied by like this Turkish general who later got executed because he didn't have very good friends. But yeah, but he copied that map from what some people think to be one of the archives in the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, which makes me so sad that
I know,
burned down.
I know.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of records that it makes sense that there might have been a advanced, not sure how advanced, culture from longer ago than we think.
It's all a bit anecdotal and almost a little treasure mappy for me.
Yeah, well, read his book. There's a lot for
I
sure.
would recommend Sapiens by Yvonne Harris, I believe.
Yvonne Harris. Oh, I do know about Yvonne Harris. Yeah.
I've been reading that, and that's like it's a very concrete history, but it also doesn't kind of leave out the more fantastical parts of a kind of human.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff, man.
There is.
It's also that almost every continent in its ancient history describes a very, very similar
flood.
Being.
They always have they're called.
They might have a flood, yeah.
There's
but a
always
very similar being that teaches them how to do things. Like, all of them have, like, pretty white skin. They all have beards, and which is not a thing that's represented in all kinds of people.
Well, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with the white skin part, because, like, in the Bible, like, I don't think skin color is ever mentioned.
No, I'm not talking about.
I know.
Yeah,
but like specifically in that instance, which is the main catalyst. For
That's too young. I'm talking way older. Yeah.
Hmm.
Talking older than the Bible.
I would love to if you could send me some.
Dude,
of that
I
stuff.
got you. It's a great book. The audiobook's like 18 hours.
Oh, is this still the Fingerprints
of the Gods?
Okay.
Yeah. Check out that book.
I'll look into it. Yeah.
Don't take everything he says like for certain. Obviously, I don't know. I know you won't, but
Do you know a lot about the author?
Graham Hancock?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy.
Okay.
He definitely knows what he's talking about. He's very obviously an experienced archaeologist and researcher.
He's a white guy?
He's a white guy, yeah. Yeah, he's a white guy. What does that matter to you? What's the...
I was just curious.
Yeah, he's a white guy. And there's a lot of things that people like try to discredit him. Like, for example, like, oh, he takes psychedelics. Like, he is... he's completely wacky in the head now, and which isn't... No, he's not like that. Come on. Grow up, people. But, yeah, so...
Yeah, you have to... But you
I will show you him.
Okay.
He is worth checking out for sure. And I brought him up with Peter, and Peter was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not... Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
But check him out.
Okay, I'll look into him. I've always found, like, when I'm reading a historical account, a political account, a sociological account, knowing the author, knowing any biases.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have, like,
really important.
in my opinion, it's more important sometimes than the actual reading itself.
I think both are necessary.
Well, absolutely.
Because I like fun ideas. I like talking to people about things that I don't know.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
Yeah, man. How much time we got left?
Probably reaching the end.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right, yeah, we got like 4 minutes.
Okay, how do we wrap this up?
Anything else you want to cover up before we go?
Anything I want to cover up?
Any shout-outs?
Yeah, Epstein didn't kill himself.
True.
Our financial institutions are corrupt.
Okay. Which ones? In what sectors?
Our corporations.
Okay.
And our institutional, technological institutions.
Like social media ones?
Yes. Mostly
Thank you.
Social
Let's
media.
go.
Well, I think that's a bit...
Dude, like 2 companies own social media at this point.
I think almost every single big tech company that we allow to exist in the complete, like, dominance that they have.
Well, it's because the business model doesn't favor the people. Like, they're selling people's time, which is never good.
Is it the technology business model, or is it the American business model?
I think it's, well, throughout at least European, Western cultures, the ones that are, also Chinese ones for sure. Their business model is ads. I think it's a really, really tough business model to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Like from a culture standpoint, you can be financially sustainable. Let me tell you that.
Did you see the Grubhub ad?
The which one?
The Grubhub ads.
Grubhub ads? No, I haven't.
They're these horrible They're just like abominations, and they're
made by like AI. Is that what you're talking about?
It feels like it.
I'll check them out.
It's just horrible dancing.
Oh.
It's like, buy Grubhub, and then it's like,
I do know what you're talking about.
Horrible,
they're so
right?
bad.
They're awful. It feels like you're being shamed for being a human.
It feels like it's
awful.
made by AI.
It does.
I do know what you're talking about. I just didn't know it was Grubhub. That's how much it didn't even stick to me who the
I shouldn't have said their name.
Commercial.
It's a unnamed horrible product of a hegemonic capitalist worldview.
Ooh.
That's my statement.
Rip into him, Jake.
I do not like this company.
Yes, I understand. I mean, Uber Eats is also. I've heard some podcasts with restaurant owners, and they're having some issues with Uber Eats right now. And also people who are driving for them are having some issues with Uber Eats because it's separating the restaurant industry with being social.
Oh.
So like a lot of things that people like is like they like having their restaurant or someone that works at the restaurant, like Mario, for example, working. That's literally an exact example that someone else used, so I'm just copying it. But like, hey, Mario, how's it going? Like, oh, thanks for the food. I love your fettuccine. Good stuff, right? But with Uber Eats, it's a different guy every time. It's just like people are forgetting about the importance of restaurants in our society.
Food's so important to culture.
Yeah.
Culture and
throughout every culture, right?
Every single culture has at some point used food as a way to come together, to
people like to eat, man.
Pass things along.
Yeah.
Recipes, big communal meals.
Yeah.
Food can be a beautiful thing, and when you take all the social, all the passion out of that, you kind of alienate people from that very communal experience that we can have with food.
Speaking of food, I'm getting a little hungry, man.
Same.
We can end this. Let's see. So, 10:59. Again, this was Jake Smith.
Thank you for having me.
Student at Principia College, majoring in political science and...
Minoring in sociology.
thanks so much for being on, man.
Thanks
I
so much for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yeah, man, it's so great having a radio show like this. Well, okay, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for listening to Christian Blaney's Cockpit, and this will be on YouTube under Christian Blaney's Cockpit, and under Apple Podcast under Christian Blaney's Cockpit. Soon to be Spotify, hopefully. All right, see y'all. Bye.